Mark and Chrissy Donnelly are with us, the co-authors of Chicken Soup for the Golfer's Soul. It's a top 10 list best-selling book, and they've also written Chicken Soup for the Couple's Soul as well. And Mark and Chrissy, welcome to WHO Radio.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Good morning.
I think probably some people groaned when they walked past your book in the bookstore and saw a Chicken Soup for the Golfer's Soul, because we've had so many other, chicken soup books, and sure enough, this book is just filled with all sorts of great stories like the other chicken soup books, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Golf, we thought golf was the most natural thing to do a chicken soup book about because, first of all, golf is the most story-rich sport out there. I mean, every golfer has 100 stories, and they'll tell you all 100 if you give them a chance.
That's right.
And secondly, we look at golf as a practice round for life. So many of the lessons you learn in life you can learn right out there on the course, whether it's integrity or honesty or friendship or even learning to laugh at yourself.
Mm-hmm. Now, Chrissy, what makes a great chicken soup story?
Well, it's one of those stories that grabs you at the end and either makes you laugh or inspires you. Or, one of my favorite stories is a story that was sent in by George Bush, former President George Bush, and it's appropriately titled, I Hate Golf, I Love Golf. And he takes you through his story about, how he just hates this game and how he invoked this no laughing rule with his buddies. Of course, on the 16th hole, they break that. And even at the end of the round, he had a terrible round. The next day, he's out there again with the 6:30 a.m. tee time, and we all get pulled back into that game.
That's right. How do you solicit your stories for the books?
Well, initially we actually did a contest last year over the U.S. Open on the Internet, and I think we got 1,000 entries just in that one weekend alone. And we also have gone to, the Golf Writers Association. That's why we've got so many quality writers in this book. And we also went to a lot of the pros. Patty Berg has a story in the book, Davis Love III, Peter Jacobson, Sam Snead. I mean, there's just some amazing stories by some amazing golfers. But you have to remember the majority of the stories are by your average golfer. And that's what golf's all about, is really enjoying those everyday moments.
Mark, can you try to explain to us what it is about golf today that is so hot and why people are so interested in it?
Yes, I think that's a complicated question, but I guess my take on it is, we're all rushing around from appointment to appointment in our lives, and nobody has a spare 5 minutes. But you look at golf, and I think most people look at it as a refuge or an escape or a place to get away and slow down, enjoy some time by themselves and with friends. And also, it's a place to get out in nature. I mean, you look around the country, and most of us live in or around cities.
That's right.
And yet golf courses are like, getting out in nature.
See, that's why I enjoy watching golf on television. I know a lot of people laugh at that because they say it's a very slow sport on television, but I enjoy just watching the scenes of the golf course, the beauty of it all.
It's so relaxing.
It is very relaxing, and for those of us that are in suburbia now, it's rush all the time and very small plots of land, and we don't see any of these beautiful outdoor nature scenes, and golf provides that, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's almost like nature improved upon,
Now, golf used to have the reputation as being a rich person's sport, but that's changing.
It really is. In my opinion, it's probably not changing fast enough, but it is changing a lot. Chrissy mentioned President Bush has a story in the book, and he's honorary chairman of a wonderful organization called the First Tee, and what they're doing, Tiger created so much excitement among kids and a lot of inner city kids, and the First Tee, it's an initiative to build customized golf facilities to bring affordability and accessibility to the game of golf around the country. In fact, they just broke ground on this great project in Richmond, Virginia, and each one of the holes is named after a different character trait. And when the kids are playing, they encourage them to experience and learn about these different character traits, like integrity and honesty and such.
Now, Chrissy, women have gotten more involved in golf recently too, and I was surprised to see that you've just fairly recently started golfing.
I know. I started about 2 years ago, and I tell all of my girlfriends, it's a must. I mean, I used to be in corporate America. I was with Price Waterhouse for 7 years, and I didn't golf, and there was so much that I missed out on. It isn't that I believe that a lot of business transactions are done on the course. I think a lot of business relationships are deepened, and there's that camaraderie and that friendship that happens, when people in business go out and play golf. And so I say for women, you said, you're really missing out if you don't take advantage of that. And also, for Mark and I, when we first moved to Arizona, I didn't golf, and so he didn't golf because I didn't. I thought, well, that's not really fair.
Oh.
So what we've learned is it's such a great way to spend the weekend together. If you're married, what a great time to spend 4.5 hours together with your spouse.
And I also understand you do pretty well now, too.
Well, you know what, Mark is. I have to tell you, he's my coach. I did within a year. I shot a 90.
Oh, the perfect wife. Give credit to the husband for
There
beating
you
him. You must beat him
what
sometimes.
What she's not telling you is she liked that advice up front early on, but now when I give her advice, I pay the price.
That's right. Boy, you too.
But, of course, I reference my lowest score ever. Isn't that funny how we golfers do that? Yeah, I shot a 90. Well, ask me what I shot last weekend, and it was not a 90. So
I always say, on how many holes?
Exactly.
Our guests are Mark and Chrissy Donnelly. They're the co-authors of Chicken Soup for the Golfer's Soul. It's Winzenburg on the Weekend on News Radio 1040 WHO. We're talking about golf. And I want to ask you about the lessons that you say golf can teach us. What are some of those lessons that we can learn from golf?
Well, I'd love to tell a story that sort of exemplifies one of the lessons you can learn from golf. It's a story from the book, and I think it's very appropriate. It's called A Day at the Tradition, and it's about a senior PGA Tour event, which obviously is appropriate this weekend.
That's right, great.
It happened to a friend of ours. Her name's Chrissy Clifford, and this was several years ago. She lived in Minneapolis, and she was diagnosed with cancer, and like a lot of people who go through chemotherapy, she'd lost all of her hair. And in her words, she was bald as a cue ball. Well, her solution to that was to buy these special hats that already had the hair attached, to just whip them on in the morning and she'd be on her way. Well, one particular winter when there was a ton of snow on the ground and she was really depressed, her husband, who had been by her side the whole way, came into the room and said, "Chris, pack your bags. We're going out to Scottsdale, Arizona to watch a senior PGA Tour event called The Tradition." Well, she was always an avid golf fan, so she was thrilled about that. So she packs her bags. 2 days later, they're out there, the first day of the tournament, off of the 6th fairway. There are thousands of people out there, and they're all following her three favorite golfers in the world, which are Raymond Floyd, Tom Weiskopf, and Jack Nicklaus. Well, as they're walking up to the tee box, the unexpected and unimaginable happens, and this huge gust of wind comes up and blows her hat and her hair completely off her head and out into the middle of the fairway. Well, you can imagine the crowd's reaction. Everybody saw it, and there's total silence. She's mortified. Even the golfers had stopped because her hair was in their flight path, and they couldn't tee off. Well, she finally realizes the next move's up to her, and she gathers her courage, and she lifts up the rope, and she walks out into the middle of the fairway, and she bends down, picks up her hat and hair, and puts it back on her head, and then she turns towards the golfers and in a loud voice announces, "Gentlemen, the wind is blowing from left to right." And to me, there are so many lessons in that story,
right.
but one of them is learning to have grace under fire, and another is learning to laugh at yourself.
Yes, and she's wonderful too. I've had her on my show, and just bubbly, effervescent, just full of life, even though she's had such hardships with cancer. That is a lesson that you can learn from her and from this story. Now, Chrissy, what about relationships? Because one of the themes I see running throughout this book is the importance of relationships, not just in a business sense, like going out and golfing with business people, but also family relationships as well.
You know what? That was one of the best part about this book, was putting together the stories and the relationships that people refer to. And I think Mark in particular can relate to that because his father brought him out on the golf course when he was a young age of 3 years old, and that's really the bond that's kept them together.
Yeah, there's a lot of father-son stories in this book too.
Exactly, because a lot of fathers have a hard time expressing their emotions, but I know for Mark and his father, that was a way that they really connected. And the stories throughout the book, of father-daughter stories. And the great thing about golf, and we all know that, it's such an equalizing game. It doesn't matter if you're just starting out or if you're a scratch player. With the handicaps, you can still make it fun. And I really think it's helped out Mark and I and our relationship. Even though you have to balance, when you critique the other person and that sort of thing. But I think it's really deepened our relationship, and it's so much fun to we work together 24 hours a day, 7 days a week during the workday, and it's nice to be able to have a relaxing outing together on the golf course and really enjoy each other's company.
Well, it's got a lot of great stories. It's called Chicken Soup for the Golfer's Soul. I'd love to have you back on sometime and talk about your couples book as well.
Well, thank you.
We'd love to be back.